Interesting point of view from Virat Kohli post the game, and this is something you expect from the home side more than anything else. He felt that India understood the angles of the ground better.
It's an interesting one. I once asked Shane Warne when they were playing at Jaipur, Rajasthan Royals, and I said, "What is the home advantage on a deck? You know, it's a T20 pitch." He said, "You'll be surprised how much understanding the angles of the ground helps. Just where to keep your backward point fielder, maybe just an extra yard to the left on the surface, which we understand that a visiting team may not understand." So I can see where now Virat's coming from, saying he understood the angles. But irrespective of what angle it is, it's such a small ground. I mean, that top edge of KL Rahul that went for 6, just push the boundary back as far as it can. It's what, 48, 50 meters there.
And it wasn't even
such a small boundary.
It wasn't even the kind of top edge that you slash and it goes in the direction you wanted. He was playing towards the onside. It went the wrong way for 6.
I mean, I can understand it's a heritage ground. It's been like this for God knows how many years. I know they turned the angle, they changed the shape a little bit. But with a new game, with the power, the batsmen are physically stronger than they've ever been before. The bats are so much better. See, Shreyas Iyer, you look at Shreyas Iyer, you don't think he's this big Hulk, right? He hits 6s for fun. You've got to have a bigger ground than this. You can't have this tiny little ground. You can play on a set tomorrow.
Before we actually talk about India, I think I'm going to put a question to both my experts here, and this is something we can actually record for posterity. You know, we've often heard it asked. I mean, it's one thing to say that when a ground's too small, make sure it's bigger, keep the boundaries away. Is there even a case for some sort of standardization, or does that take away from?
But I think the ICC has standardized the boundary length at between. There's a range. But all the grounds that existed before this came along are allowed to continue where they are. So if you're building a new test match ground today or a T20 ground, you cannot have a boundary this size. It has to be bigger than this. Also, there are now restrictions on the distance between the cement of the stands and the boundary rope. So I asked the people in Rajkot, so you got such a big ground, why didn't you push it back? He said, well, we need to keep that much space too. So Rajkot was a ground that is big, but the boundary ropes are brought in a little bit. It was still 75 meters. That boundary behind the key was 50. That's 25 meters.
Birmingham had 58 meters when Bairstow was hitting those 6s, but that was for a different reason. They were playing on a side pitch.
But you can't play an international side pitch. I've heard this told so many times. Can you imagine India versus England on a side pitch? And what are they going to play? They're going to play some Birmingham outer suburbs or inner suburbs on the centre pitch? I cannot understand this.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You have to play your big matches on the best pitch.
We remember the 92 World Cup, again, one of the prettiest grounds you can ever imagine in Pukekura Park, New Plymouth. Sri Lanka played Zimbabwe. 312 for 7 was put on. And the first thing that everyone said was, yes, Zimbabwe have made 312, but it's more like a 240 score because of the size of the ground. It's tiny. It had about 55-meter boundary.
And we've seen it in the first match of this series. You know, 203 was effectively 180, 185. You know, so that is something which a dimension of the ground can have the impact. But it's only this country, I think, you know, where every time we go visit this country, we talk about this dimension that adds to that psychological, say, advantage disadvantage of the game, you know, when you're touring New Zealand, for sure. And at times we've seen that if the wicket is so helpful, you know, then these boundaries also don't come into equation at all. But on a placid track, yes, then it can turn to be a nightmare for any bowler.
Like that.
And it's not.
We have some like that. Wankhede is not the biggest.
Yeah.
But it's bigger than this. But Wankhede is not the biggest. Kotla is small. We have some of these ourselves.
It's not necessarily to do with a small town like New Plymouth is. Queenstown is small, it's picturesque, but the playing surface is actually large.
And Australia, all the grounds are big. Indore is also small.
Smallish, yeah.
Indore is small. Some of these grounds are really small in India too.